Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Govs on the Go Alumni Edition, a podcast featuring alumni from the College of Arts and Letters here in Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the Dean of the college. I'm also the host of the podcast. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Joe Pitts, who graduated from Austin Peay back in 1980. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dean Hoon. It's good to be with you.
Wow, it's we're gonna talk a lot about what you're currently doing, but so let's give everybody a life update. Tell everybody what you are doing and where you are.
Well, I have the great pleasure of serving as mayor of the City of Clarksville. Have been in office since January of 2019. Abraham Lincoln said you can fool some of the people some of the time, so I was able to fool enough people to vote for me in 2018 and then reelected in 2022. But, every day I feel like a tourist. I'm just kind of looking around, and this is City Hall. And I get to work with 1,400 of the best people in the world, the city employees.
That is awesome. And I know that Clarksville just continues to grow and great things are happening. And certainly we can talk about what your plans are for the future. But let's go back in time. I always like to start at the beginning because I think it's important to find out what shaped the person that I'm talking with. So you were born and raised in Clarksville.
Yes.
And
yes.
so tell me how did being from Clarksville impact you? What kind of things did you do as a young boy?
Well, I was born in New Providence, not physically in New Providence, but I'm born and raised in New Providence, off Peters Mill Road. Way back in 1958. So if you're doing the math, I'm 65. Attended public school, Burns Darden Elementary School, New Providence. It's now middle school, but it was junior high school back in the day, and then Northwest High School. I was the first in my immediate family to go to college. My father dropped out of school in the 8th grade because his father had a stroke, and he was one of 7 children, and they sort of had to fend for themselves. So he dropped out of the 8th grade. So he and my mother both were very high on me getting as much education as I wanted and supporting me in that. So Austin Peay was the only choice for me because it was right here and offered what we wanted to study.
So you mentioned that in your younger part of your life, you had lots of people that were very supportive of you, including some teachers and talk about the importance of that, because I think sometimes we don't recognize that an encouraging word or supportive pat on the back can really make a difference to a young person.
Yeah, when you're going through school, you spend most of your time, most of your days with teachers in school. So obviously they have a great influence on you, and they're just any number from 1st grade through 12th. Because when I was in school, in elementary school, kindergarten was not required. In fact, it wasn't offered. So I started school in 1st grade. But yeah, I had a number of teachers that were just great influences and still are. Some of them I see at Retired Teacher Association luncheons, but
Wow.
The list is long of teachers, everybody from Ann Long, bless her heart, she passed last year, to I think about Coach Frank Moss at New Providence, football coach, as he was a social studies teacher. Don Shelton, Marianne Marks was my geometry teacher. She was very patient because I failed geometry, just couldn't get it. I'm an algebra guy, just couldn't get geometry. And then Terry Martin in English, and Hibernia Williams in English, Don Shelton. Buzz the list. I could spend the hour just calling names. Brenda Geralds, who was a PE teacher at New Providence. She was very kind and gracious and patient, still is, with me. Juanita Covington in biology. Esau Lathan was the football coach. John Aldridge, who used to be a city council member as well. He was the shop teacher at Northwest. Marshall Ross, believe it or not, that's a name that may be familiar in the community. He's been generous to Austin Peay in the ag department. He was a driver's ed teacher back in the day when they had driver's ed in school.
Yeah.
I could just go on and on about my teachers.
Well, the fact that you can recall all those names is first of all amazing to me, but it also shows that you are definitely a people person, that you are somebody that knows the importance of getting to know and individuals. And we're going to talk about that. But did you have a sense early on that you had this ability to befriend and to just have that you were going to be a people person?
Well, I'm going to tell you a secret. I'm an introvert. It takes everything I've got to screw up the courage, put on my game face, and go out into the public. I mean, it is an effort.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a natural introvert. I can be by myself and just enjoy it. I don't have to be around people to feed off, but I love being around people. But just by nature, I'm an introvert. So I'm not sure when I discovered I'm a people person, but I've always wanted to be the kind of person, and I tell groups this all the time. I want to be the person when I walk into a room, I say, there you are, not here I am. Because I want it to be all about them. I want to know what's going on with them. How can I help them? Not here I am, look at me, I'm the mayor, or whatever I am.
That is such a great switch to say it's about, it's about the people. And that's what I mean. And I meant that as a compliment. When you're a people person, I think it's about recognizing the importance of others and not so much about how can I influence others or make them follow me, because I think that leaders, and I definitely see that you're a leader, people do that because they know that you care about them.
Well, yeah, I care about our people. We've had a difficult week this week with our police department, and I've reached out to those officers who were involved just to let them know, hey, we're thinking about you, whatever you need. I know that the city has a support system to take care of you, but I wanted you to know your mayor is thinking about you. And here's my cell number. If you need anything, you call me. So, yeah, it is all about them. It has nothing to do with me.
So while you were in high school, you mentioned to me that you took a job. I think it was in your senior year, and it was at the Clarksville floor covering. And you had a family that was really impactful on you. Can you tell everybody about that story?
Yeah, it was what a great experience, Buzz. When I was a senior in high school, I was looking for a part-time after-school job. And my uncle Bruce Davis, who used to be a block mason, built a lot of houses and buildings, and he and Mr. James Farley, the Farleys who own Clarksville Floor Covering, they were good friends. And so my uncle Bruce called Mr. Farley and said, hey, if you're looking for a part-time employee to work in your warehouse or just labor, my nephew's looking for something. So Mr. Farley hired me on the spot. I went in and he said, I need you to start tomorrow. So I came in the next day after school and worked 6 days a week, after school every day, and then all day on Saturday, and then worked with them the entire way through Austin Peay. They worked around my class schedule, but I worked all day on Saturday. So I didn't get to go to a lot of football games that were held in the afternoon, but that's okay. But yeah, they were a huge influence in my life. I got to learn so much about business and people and just how to do business with integrity.
What a work ethic. I mean, you mentioned the fact that they taught you that when it's slow, you got to be working hard, and when it's busy, you got to be working hard.
Yeah, Mr. Farley, he was a very wise man, and I'd go with him on different things. And I just asked him one day, hey, you're in your 60s or later. Why don't you take more time off? They love to go to the lake, and that's when he gave me that line that I'll never forget. He said, Joe, when business is good, you can't afford to get away. And when business is slow, you can't get away. And that always stuck with me.
Yeah.
And so he was just a great, great influence in my life.
And then I also wanted to ask you about in your senior year, a letter to the editor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. In my house growing up, every night at supper, we would talk about current events, not necessarily partisan politics, but what was just going on in the community, not just, well, what'd you do in school today, or And there was something that happened at a city council meeting. I don't even remember, Buzz, honestly, what it was. And so I got the not so bright idea to write a letter to the editor. And then it was published, and my classmates saw it, and they began calling me mayor. And one of them gave me a T-shirt that had JEP, which is my initials, for mayor. And I have a picture of me and my very dear friend Andy Richardson, who I grew up with. His mother, Hilda Richardson, was a teacher and principal. But I have a picture of Andy and me with me wearing that T-shirt, and I still have my high school yearbook where many of them signed, wrote a letter to me as mayor. And so I don't know, I guess it was predestined for me to be here, but it took me, 40 years to get here.
I'm sure. Have you been to a high school reunion since then, or do you see these people around the community and they say, I told you so?
Well, yeah, I see them, but they can't believe it. So, you're the mayor? I mean, is that the best we can do? But yeah, I see them, and I've been out of school almost 50 years now. But it's gratifying to serve my hometown where I am. I don't take any day for granted, because I know it can be taken away from me at any moment.
Absolutely.
And I'm try not to be stupid about it.
Well, we're going to move on next into your next chapter, which is in Austin Peay. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things you remember getting involved with, and some of the professors, maybe even some students.
Oh yeah, Austin! What a wonderful experience. Being the first person in my immediate family to go to college, I had nobody to talk to about what college was about. So I can remember having to stand in line to get the class cards. Those computer cards. Once they ran out of cards, that class was full, and so you had to scramble. And I tried to arrange my schedule, so I had all my classes in the morning, because I needed to work in the afternoon at Clarksville floor covering. But I went in. That was back in the day when Austin Peay was on quarters and not semesters. So the fall quarter of my freshman year, my first class, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, was biology at 8 a.m. And Dr. Eddie Chester was the professor. What a great guy. He made class fun, but there were like 150 students in the McCord building at that time in this lecture hall. But he just made it very interesting. And then the labs on Tuesday and Thursday. So that was my introduction to college. It was a tough class because he was a tough professor. But it was enjoyable because he had a great infectious laugh. I mean, he just, his belly shook like a bowl full of jelly. He just had a great laugh and made it very engaging. Taught me a lot about identifying trees that I can still recall to this day, on how to identify what type tree I'm looking at. So yeah, Dr. Chester was my first Monday morning class, my first class at Austin Peay, and then several other teachers and professors. I can still remember Vernon Warren, who taught political science. He had the best political cartoons that he would find, and he would show those in class, and they would always fit into the lesson. He was a great lecturer, a very tough test giver. I mean, you had to be prepared for his exams. And then Paul Hyatt with history. Mr. Hyatt wore the same, or Dr. Hyatt wore the same gray suit every single day. Every single day. And, he lived most of the history because he was pretty old by the time I got there. So yeah, Austin Peay was a great experience for me.
So you also mentioned that as a student, you took the opportunity to hang out, and, like many other students do when I go outside of Harnett Hall here. And but the pit, the area looked a little different than it does now.
Yeah. Of course, the old student center was there. That white rock finished building was there, and the space outside there, we call it the bowl, and that's where students would hang out when the weather was good, sunny or warm outside. We just hang out in the bowl, waiting. At my age, talking to girls as they walk by, and you just hung out there. And then The campus underwent, I think I was a sophomore, underwent sort of, or maybe been a junior, I forget. It's been so long, Buzz. It underwent some renovation, and they had to dig out the bowl because it's a natural depression and a sinkhole, and there's a drain at the bottom, or was. And that was a muddy mess in the winter and spring quarters, and you couldn't hang out there because it was nothing but mud. And the students were really upset. I mean, that was our place. We didn't want to hang out in the student center. We want to hang out outside. So, it's funny what you remember.
And you're working your way through to get the social work degree. And so was the intent that that was going to be the profession? How did that kind of come about for you?
Well, I worked for the Farleys and got to learn business from the inside out. But I wanted more of a human services perspective. There was a new professor at Austin Peay that they'd hired in 1975, I think, not 75, but 76. And his name was Glenn Carter, and he started a social work program. And Glenn, he was a great influence in my life. He'd spent some time in the military, and he had his master's degree in social work, and he made classes very interesting. But I wanted to learn how to relate to people. I wanted to learn about people and groups and interviewing skills and all of those things that I thought were important, no matter what profession you were in. So Glenn was a great influence. He and Dan Martin were professors, and they started the program, and so it just intrigued me. So that's why I applied and got into the program, and I don't regret it a minute. It was a great experience.
And that's what I hope our students that are watching this understand about. As you go through life and you're putting these tools into your tool belt, you're never sure how they're going to be applied in a career, or if you're going to switch a career, go to a different career, how useful they will be. Everything that you're picking up along the way, whether it's writing skills, critical thinking, problem solving, all these kind of things that you learn how to do will help you maybe in another job as well.
Yeah, Austin Peay, a university setting, is really great for giving you the tools and helping you to discover what your strengths and weaknesses are. I'll never forget Dan Martin, who was a professor in the social work program, said, when you graduate college, you're just trainable. When you get out of high school, you're not even trainable. But when you get out of college, you're trainable because you've committed to a 4-year, at that time, curriculum. You've completed it, and you've proven yourself as trainable for your career. And you don't have to use your degree in whatever it's in, accounting or social work or history, specifically for that purpose. So the social work program was really good for me because it brought me out and helped me. And I think to this day, I still use a lot of those skills in interviewing applicants for jobs and just talking to people and how to just get to know them. So yeah, it was good for me. And students need to understand you got a lot of tools, but it's up to you to kind of develop and know what those are.
So as a young person, you graduated and you stayed within the state, but you left the Clarksville area.
Yeah.
It must have been a little bit of exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking as well to leave the area and begin this new career.
Yeah, that was one thing I wanted to do. I wanted to leave Clarksville, not for anything negative, but I wanted to experience other parts of the state. So I got a job over in East Tennessee, over just outside of Knoxville in the Appalachian area of Campbell, Anderson, Scott County area, and just got to know a bunch of just good folks, salt of the earth kind of people, mountain folks, which are a lot different from us people here in Middle Tennessee or the Flatlanders over in West Tennessee. Mountain people are just they can do anything. And so I got to know a lot of them over there, and worked for an organization out of Oak Ridge that had satellites around, and they had outpatient rehab services for developmentally disabled adults and children. And my focus was on the adults. I'd gotten involved in Special Olympics as a student at Austin Peay, a volunteer. and so carried that love for that sport and that organization into East Tennessee and got involved over there. So yeah, that was I wanted to get away from home. I just needed to get away to kind of figure out who I was, because here I was always going to be the son of Joe and Alice Pitts, and there was nothing wrong with that. I
Right.
just wanted to create my own identity.
Absolutely. And I think that's what I hope our students take from this is this personal growth that will happen along the way. And so, I'm sure at the time you're having that success and maybe thinking, okay, well, I'll stay here for the rest of my adult life. But it's funny how things happen.
Yeah, it is funny. I've never been one that has a 10 or a 20-year plan. I've always, you know, I've always looked at, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do this
Mhm.
year? Um, and it's always kind of worked that way. People say, well, what are you running for next? Are you going to run for another term? And I just say, look, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now. When it comes time to make a decision, I will make that decision. But I'm not using this as a stepping stone. That's not what I do. I didn't leave the legislature in 2018 thinking, okay, I'm going to run for mayor next. I didn't do that. It was time to retire from the legislature. I'd been there 12 years. So I retired, and then it was shortly after that I got the go ahead to run for mayor. And here I am.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got into this transitional period where you got into politics. Who guided you? Who was helping you find your path that way?
Well, as I mentioned, my family was always kept up on current events. And, one of the great influences in my father's life was, excuse me, President Franklin Roosevelt, FDR. In fact, I've got his bust on a table across from my desk here, just as a reminder that he was the only president to serve more than two terms. Actually, he almost served 4 complete terms, died in office and on April 12th, 1945. But with polio and all the maladies that he had, he still traveled the country, brought us out of the Great Depression. So that was sort of a national influence on me. Local influences, I just got to know mayors from Crozier to Crow. I met Mayor Crow when I was just a kid, and then got to work for Mayor Trotter when he came back in office in 2002, and then never dreamed that I'd be mayor. But when the door opens, and that's a message for everybody and students, especially when a door opens and you're not sure, you're uncomfortable, sometimes you got to step through it just to see what's on the other side.
That's amazing to me that as you mentioned, you felt like you have this introverted personality, but you've always pushed yourself to, a little bit more, a little bit more. And I'm sure that was not easy to do, to always, expand in those areas, but I'm sure it's been very gratifying.
Oh, very gratifying. I still can't believe, I get to do what I do every day. I cannot wait to get up every morning and get to work, and just see what we can do to help folks. Because, people they just want to be listened to sometimes. You don't have to have the right answer or the best answer.
I'm sure people always want to know, especially younger people that might be interested in politics. What are some of the biggest challenges or things that you found during your career?
Well, I get to visit with a lot of students. In fact, when I talk to student groups, I encourage them to come see me. Let's spend some time, and I did just the other day with a student. Let's spend some time finding out about you and what your interests are. The question I get asked a lot, is there a particular major I need to have in school to run for a political office? And I said, no. In fact, there's no guidebook. There's no directory or plan you can follow. I just say, find something that needs to be done and get passionate about it. Instead of find something you're passionate about and do it, because sometimes you're out there by yourself, but find something that needs to be done and really get passionate about it. And no matter what that is. But there are just all kinds of opportunities to serve. And really, it's more about who knows you than who you know. So find an organization and volunteer, serve on their board, because there's hundreds of nonprofit organizations in our community that are just starving for good people to serve. And that's the best way you get to know people and get to know your community.
So you've had lots of different positions along the way, and I always like to also find out what are some of the joys that you've had, that you share with your family, and you say, I can't believe I've been blessed to have this opportunity.
Well, when I served in the state legislature, I was elected the first time in 2006 to serve in the Tennessee House of Representatives. That was Governor Bredesen, his second term. He was reelected that same year. And his tradition was he would always invite the freshman legislators to his office to have lunch with him one day. And I was a kid from New Providence, meeting a governor or anybody like that was just pretty darn intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
It was, even though he was an intimidating man, it's just, it's the old imposter syndrome. You don't think you belong there.
Right.
So there were 8 of us that went to his conference room one day in the state capitol, and it's this ornate with the murals and the high ceilings and it's just beyond belief what it looks like. And so we go in and we're seated around the table, and he comes in the room, and of course you stand up in deference to him, and he puts you immediately at ease. And at his back was a table that was covered by a white tablecloth, and that was going to be lunch. But he wanted to talk to us first, and he was talking and getting to know us, and we were getting to know him, and then finally said, well, let's have lunch. And so he goes and he pulls the sheet off the table that was covering lunch, and it was bologna sandwiches. So I got to have bologna sandwiches with the governor.
That is awesome.
And I'll never forget, because when you eat, we called it light bread or white bread. I call it light bread when I was growing up. That white bread gets stuck in the roof of your mouth, if it's fresh. And he was getting it stuck, and he was jamming his finger up there, and I thought, he's just like us, he's just like us, multimillionaire governor guy, So that was fun. That was fun. I still tell that story. And then, my favorite governor was Governor McWhorter, because I got to meet him, but not in any kind of personal setting. I don't know. I'm just a kid from New Providence that's living a dream, Buzz. Just
yeah. I would be the same way. I would be starstruck, and also I think that the idea, the concept of where you come from, and then where you are. It's hard to conceptualize and put those two realities together sometimes.
Yeah, it is. My father passed 5 or 6 years ago, and my mother's still thankfully in good health and living. And I have one sister that's older. And when I wanted to get into the political race, they first questioned my sanity, and then once I said, no, here's my vision, here's what I want to do. And they were all in. I mean, they went door to door with me, and
yeah,
they called friends, and I've got a lot of extended family around, and again, I'm just blessed to win those elections, and so yeah, it's more about self-discovery is part of this process.
You mentioned also that while you've had the opportunity to meet lots of important people in government, you also have cherished opportunities to get to know the truck drivers, to get to know the teachers, to get to know all types of people. And that's a part of the job that I think that when somebody gets into it, doesn't always think of as the rewarding experience part.
Yeah, I mentioned at the top, we have 1,400 plus or minus employees that work for the city, and I'm not there yet, but I try to get to know them on a first name basis. So when I see them, I can call them by name, because to me, that's important.
Yeah.
If somebody knows your name, then that means they're paying attention. But, every morning when I get here, there's a young man his name is Matthew Edwards. He's out manicuring the grass, picking up trash around City Hall, just taking very good care of the property and the site here. And then there's, again, I could go on and on, but, it's Matthew does a great job, and Willie Scott before him. And then our folks at Gas and Water who are out, repairing water lines in the heat, or, and if I see a crew out and it's not dangerous to stop, I'll stop and just say thank you and talk to them and make sure they know that I'm paying attention. One of our loss prevention officers, we call them loss prevention officers, but they're security guards around City Hall. His name's Tim. He and I get here at the same time every morning, and, getting to know him, and his birthday was the day before mine. And, so I just want to relate to people, because when my time is up, I don't want them to have my name to be on any building. I just want them to say, he really cared about us.
Right.
That's what I want. It's my legacy.
And is it true you call all your employees on their birthday? Because that is an awesome thing to do.
Well, yeah, I call them I've got my phone list. In fact, I've got it right here. And there's 8 people who were born on the 17th of August. So I'll call each one of them today. When I first started doing it, some of them thought it was a recording, so they politely listened, or some of them were punked, thought they were getting punked. This is not the mayor, and then one employee, he was in his car. He and his family were in his car, and so I called, and of course you're in your car, you got it on speaker, and so I told him who I was and called him to wish you a happy birthday and hope you're having a good day today. Did you do anything special? And I heard this voice coming, sound like from the back seat, and it was from his mama. And she said, "That's not the mayor." And I said, "Well, let me tell you, he ought to be buying your dinner and not you buying his dinner for his birthday, just to thank you for giving birth to him."
Right.
So it's that kind of thing. I don't do it for them to say thank you to me. I just want them to know how special they are.
Well, I think it's great leadership, and I try to tell people about sometimes the people that are leaders, and it looks like a glamorous way to live life, but it's a lot of hard work. I know that it is, and if people really knew what it took to be in leadership, they may not want to strive for it, but it's necessary. And we certainly are thankful that you're doing all the things and you have such care about what you're doing in your job.
Yeah, thank you. Leadership is hard now, because you've got social media, you've got so many other forces at work on you, and it's just hard to communicate what the direction or vision you want to go, just because there's no one outlet. When I was a kid, as I mentioned in the letter to the editor, and everybody saw it, everybody read the newspaper back then. You could open a new business, put an ad in the paper, everybody saw it and knew you were open. Now you can open a new business and nobody know it for a year, because there's no one way to tell people.
Right.
Even social media is weird. I don't understand enough about it, but all those algorithms and everything they talk about, I don't understand it. All I know is you can't put it on social media and expect everybody to see it, because not everybody's on social media. So yeah, it's tough being a leader, not just mayor, but it's tough being a leader of anything. In your role as dean, I know it's tough, because you've got external customers and internal customers, and you answer to the presidents and to the provost, but most importantly to your students and faculty.
That's right.
So I know it's tough.
But it's what gets me out of bed in the morning, just as
it
does with you. It has purpose.
They always say your best mayor is your next mayor. You get in, after a while, people think, well, there's got to be something better, So anyway, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, well, we're glad, and we're proud to have you as an Austin Peay alum.
Well, Austin Peay's been very good to me, and I love going on campus. There's just something about that campus feel. Um, I romanticized it in my head. It's just I love walking around campus. In fact, when I come to campus, I won't park near where I'm going to be. I'll try to park far away so I can walk through campus and just see what's new, because the campus is, first of all, it's beautiful. I've never
Yes,
seen campus look so good, but there's always something new going on.
absolutely. We always like to end, Mayor Pitts, with a question about what kind of recommendations you might have for students. What would you recommend to a young person?
Well, first of all, Austin Peay is the only school I would recommend, and I do so unashamedly, just because
Thank
of
you for
the
that.
impact it's had on my life. And Austin Peay has grown sufficiently that it offers just about any kind of academic offering and experience you want. But I always tell students, immerse yourself in the university experience. You know, get involved in intramurals, in fraternities or sororities. Get to know your professors. They're some of the best people that you'll ever meet.
Hmm.
You'll be like me one day. I'm 65 and I still talk about my Austin Peay professors and the impact they made. None of them are still there because they've all retired, obviously. Uh, but just become part of the university community. Get to know people, because it's not so much high school that's your greatest influence when you get old like me. It's where you went to school, college, and what you did while you were there. You know, I played water polo at Austin Peay when the pool was an indoor pool at the time. You know, I got involved in flag football and, you know, went to basketball games. And so, yeah, just become immersed in that experience because it's a life changer.
Oh, that's awesome. We are thankful that you help promote Austin Peay in such a positive way. So thank you for that. Thank you for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you, Dean. It's an honor to be here with you. And one day you'll have to tell me where you got your nickname.
I'll I'll share that story. I'm sure.
Okay,
Sure,
good.
we can talk about that next time we see each other.
That'd be awesome. I'd look forward to it.
And thanks to our viewers and listeners out there for checking out the podcast. We hope you will join us as we continue to profile some of the outstanding alumni we have in the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.